It's Friday, and this is Pupdates. First up, we're talking about Ayaneo, and they appear to have had some controversy. Now, I'm aware that statement alone doesn't really narrow it down what's happened this week with them. However, pleased to say this one has a slightly positive ending depending on your level of trust in your outlook. So basically, what happened was a user by the name of Ghost Manslow had raised a concern that on their Pocket DS, they have root access, and they noticed that there was a snapshot directory on that device, and it appeared as though there was constant screenshots being taken of that user's games and general usage. I believe they said there was over 1,200 screenshots in the folder, and it seemed to be updating in real time. So as they were browsing, it was screenshotting the screenshots and kind of causing this Ouroboros effect. Ouroboros, I don't know how you pronounce it. And it appeared that also the Window app has transmitted 12.5 gigabytes of data since November. So what everyone went into a blind panic, rightly so, because it appeared that data was being transmitted without user knowledge, and obviously in today's world with privacy concerns and things like that, this isn't something we should take lightly. However, Ayaneo themselves have issued a statement, and I've also seen other people comment on this as well and kind of explain what's happening. I believe I saw Moth, the developer of Cocoon, throw his hat in the ring and basically say that looking at what had happened, it was most likely a bug to do with the task manager and how if you have an Android device and you swipe up and you get this little kind of preview, it's taking these screenshots and storing them in a cache so when you are in the task manager, you can see the most recent kind of images. It's supposed to be self-clearing. However, according to a statement from Ayaneo, they've said that um, they've got a statement here. Thanks for looking into this and raising the concern. We appreciate privacy-conscious users. DS has a dual-screen task manager feature that needs to render app thumbnails from the system. This is normal behavior. However, there's a bug. The cache isn't being cleaned up, causing screenshots to accumulate. Our team has identified this issue and will push a fix soon. The images are small and stored in the app sandbox, posing no security risk. Aya does not upload any of this data. About the data traffic, Android calculates traffic by Linux UID. Aya Window uses the system UID, so all traffic from apps sharing this UID gets counted together. You can check other apps with the same UID, like phone, in settings, and they'll show similar traffic. This is actually total device usage, not just the Aya Window. So obviously, you should always be cautious of companies issuing statements and always take them with a grain of salt. However, given what people such as Moth has said, someone who's involved heavily in Android development, and they've said, yeah, it's understandable. And even before they'd released this statement, he'd said, oh, it's most likely this. And from what their statement says, he's been pretty bang on the money. So a kind of win for Ayaneo. I know they've had a lot of kind of issues recently with uh, poor communication and a lack of shipping updates, and I believe there was something where they tried to offer a free gift, and the free gift turned out to actually not be so free once you took into account the customs and tariffs and things like that. So, come on, guys, we are rooting for you, but I do think they need to maybe take a step back a little bit and just go back to the drawing board and try and iron out these creases. Although, if you want to send me some review units, then by all means. So next up, and in slightly more depressing news, DuckStation, the PS1 emulator, a great PS1 emulator, the Android support is ending, and that is as a result of the developer deciding to no longer support the platform due to a lot of negativity from users. Now, the emulation space does hold a lot of negativity, and if you broaden that out to the wider gaming sphere, game people I don't want to say gamers, but people can be ungrateful in a sense, and they can be very toxic. Not you guys, you guys are perfect. However, I do believe this kind of follows a pattern of behavior from Stenzek. I don't know a lot about them. Like, I've only been following their work, and it does appear that they take criticism to heart. And unfortunately, in any say public facing, anytime you put something out into the ether, whether it's an app or a video or whatever it might be, there will be that small, and they usually are very small, vocal minority. However, they are just that, the minority. And I've had a couple of people with not outright negative comments, but some negative comments. And for the most part, they can sting and they can get to you. But then you just realize this is one person out of so many. And at the end of the day, you will always find those people. I remember the best piece of advice I ever got with regards to, or not ever received myself, I ever heard, is there is a Irish blah, blah. There's an Irish musician and podcaster who goes by Blind Boy Boat Club of the Rubber Bandits, and he does this podcast. It's a great podcast, and he said, and this is something that stuck with me: if you're ever feeling worried about your own work and you're scared of putting things out into the ether for fear of criticism, go to IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. Put in your favorite film in the whole world, whatever it might be, and read the one-star reviews. And I did that. I put in Fargo is one of my all-time favorite films, and then you read the one-star reviews, and it makes you realize that most people, their opinion isn't worth jack. So that, and that's advice I'd pass to anybody, is you could find something you absolutely adore. You read those negative reviews and you think, what are they on about? They haven't a clue. They've either not understood it. It's obviously not for them. They're not the right target audience. Whatever it might be, is you can't let the minor criticisms break you. And as someone who does stand up, like it can hurt and it will hurt. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't bother me or it won't bother you. But you just learn, okay, water for ducks back. Tomorrow's a new day. You're not going to please all the people all the time. Sometimes you're not going to please any people. But that's the way life is. That's the way the nature goes. So to the developer, I hope they're okay. First and foremost, it appears that, like I said, there appears to be a pattern of behavior. So I really do hope that they're in a good place or they're in a better place or they do what they need to do to take care of themselves. It is a loss for the Android emulation community. However, with how popular these devices are becoming, especially the ones that are based on Android, then something else will come along. We've got the Beetle core that's in RetroArch, and I believe there's others as well. There's EPSXE, and there'll be plenty of others. And like I always say, like a Hydra, one will go down, three will pop up. So a loss, but hopefully not gone but not forgotten. I believe the GitHub link as of time of recording is still up, so it is still available to download. However, if it is a emulator you do really like, then I'd advise backing up the latest APKs just in case you need to restore your device, so you've got them to hand if you want to reinstall it. Because the app itself is pretty feature complete, in my opinion. I don't think there's any straight up features that I think are missing. Like, it runs relatively well. Obviously, there's some games that don't run as well, but that's the nature of emulation. So I don't know if an update would even fix that. So yeah, if you are interested, get the APK. I've made sure I've saved my copy because I do quite like the app. GameNative have had a big update, so it's still in the pre-release section, so it might be quite buggy. I'll be testing it out later myself. I haven't had a chance to yet. But basically, they have finally enabled Steam achievement compatibility. So, from what I understand, I believe that achievements were still technically unlocking. I know that's how they worked for GameHub and GameHub Lite. Is the achievements were unlocking, but the API wasn't fully integrated into GameNative, so you couldn't actually see them. So having that feedback and making sure that they've actually unlocked is great. And we know, if you've watched my channel, you know how I feel about achievements. Big fan, absolutely love them, and I know there's a lot of you guys out there who also love them. So yeah, GameNative in the pre-release. I'll probably do a separate video on that, depending on the current stage it's at. If it's too buggy and too broken, I'll probably give it a little bit of time whilst it's ironed out. However, I'll definitely be checking that out just as soon as I've finished recording here. So Sony have been reported to be testing dynamic pricing, which I did have to do a double take at. For those of you who aren't aware what dynamic pricing is, it is when the price fluctuates based on vibes. Like, that's all I can describe it as. Is if you're based in the UK, you might be familiar with what happened when Oasis reunited last year. there was this massive controversy when they were charging different people different prices, and this wasn't a case of the cheap seats versus the front row or whatever it might be. This was just, yeah, you're you, we're charging you extra. And it's an absolutely disgusting practice. It was disgusting when Ticketmaster did it. I'm a massive PlayStation fan. I grew up with a PlayStation. However, this is outright disgusting. And I believe that as of yet, so this was originally reported by PS Prices as a result of, because they use an API to track the price changes in different regions, they'd spotted that there was a new kind of API reference, which appears to be some dynamic pricing, offering discounts and things like that, dependent on vibes. So I believe in the US it won't be affected as there is stricter pricing regulations. The UK, they did, as a result of what happened with the Oasis tickets, they did start rushing things through Parliament to try and get some legislation in there. So I believe it has been tested in Europe, and I believe so. It appears to have only been started to be tested in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Latin America, and especially for parts of Africa and Latin America. I know that they tend to have games that are cheaper on average due to varying factors such as the country's GDP and their kind of their average wages and things like that. That's one thing, but charging people in those countries different rates depending on random criteria or whatever hidden criteria they're using is a disgusting practice. So also in terms of the game effects, it only appears to be on mainly first party titles, with the exception of a few others, including WWE 2K25, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So this does only appear to be a pilot. Hopefully, that's where it dies, like a lot of Sony's live service games, because as a PlayStation fan and someone who's been a PlayStation fan since I was about 4 years old, to see a company who was renowned for their investment into first party titles and revolutionizing console gaming and the home console market, particularly in the UK as well, then to see them make so many missteps in recent history is disappointing, and also again reinforcement that stop letting the money men make the decisions. Like, they don't understand the customer base. You want someone who understands the customer base. By all means, make your money, but don't rip people off doing it. And to end on a more positive note, the Wii Retro Achievements will be launching on the 19th of March, which is next Thursday at time of recording. So I can't wait. I've bought myself a dolphin bar recently, and I'll probably do a video about the setup for that. I'm not even tested on the Thor yet, so I need to see if that works. But I'm incredibly excited. I was never a massive Wii gamer. However, there's a few titles on there, mainly WarioWare Smooth Moves. That's the one that I'm really itching to start playing. And at present, they have 140 sets that I believe will be due to go live. There's a few others that are in their kind of final testing stages, but the guys have been working really, really hard for this over the past few months. And then hopefully, maybe one day, we'll get 3DS achievements as well. One can hope. And then even potential original Xbox, now that the Xbox Android emulators have started to make an appearance. So who knows? Maybe we'll have a full library, and then maybe even Switch. Nintendo won't do it; we'll do it ourselves. So that's it for another week of updates. Again, mostly negative news. However, a few little diamonds in the rough there. What games have you been playing this week? I have been playing primarily Pokemon Fire Red, and I am determined to get all those achievements. I think I've not got too many to go. It's mainly the Pokedex and some end game stuff. So hopefully by the weekend I'll have that one. I believe Leaf Green has a similar set, but it might be a little bit easier. I don't know if there's as many, or there's some that are kind of related to specific challenges. Like for example, in Fire Red, you have to work your way through the gym leaders with parties of certain sizes and level capped Pokemon. So I'll and then once I've done those, I'll start looking at maybe Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I think I'll do next. I've got tons of Pokemon games, and like I've said in earlier videos, I've probably missed out on 20 plus years, so I've got a lot of catching up to do. So, what games have you guys been playing? Have you been doing any achievements? I have also launched a Discord, so feel free to drop in there. The link will be below. You can also follow me on Retro Achievements at Alex Won't Cook. The social side of Retro Achievements isn't the best, but if you want to have a nosy at the games I've been playing or the ones I've actually dedicated some time to outside of covering them in videos, then by all means do follow me. As always, if you like this video, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe, and also your hype points. I think I kind of understand what they are now. They appease the algorithm like a sacrificial lamb. So, yeah, I'd appreciate your high points, your likes, your subscribes, and everything in between. Tell your friends, and I'll see you next time.